Welcome to Business on the Vine. I'm your host, Lady Jen Du Plessis, and in this dynamic series, we dive into the challenges, breakthroughs, and victories of entrepreneurs who have turned their passion into success. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on Business on the Vine. I'm your host, Lady Jen Du Plessis. Today, I have with me Dr. Julie Pham. Welcome.
Lady Jen, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, well, I am too, because we had a really nice pre-interview conversation, and I'm just excited to learn so much more about what you're doing out in the world. And especially now, I feel like, let's talk about all this. Let me introduce you formally so that everybody knows who you are and what we're going to be talking about today. But you help employers become learning organizations where curiosity isn't just encouraged, but it's practiced every single day. And you're the founder and CEO of the CuriosityBased, right? Of CuriosityBased, and the author of 7 Forms of Respect, a guide to transforming your communication and relationships in work. And I cannot wait for us to dig into that, more specifically. So it's this unconventional path of, making sure that that your business family becomes your family, right? Because we all have business husbands, business wives. This is my work husband, my work wife. We want that collective to be the family too, because you spend more time with them than you do with your family anyway. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I would actually say it's not so much family, but say learning partners and people who we encourage one another to learn. And actually, I think that there's a difference between being friends and being friendly. And so
Yeah.
there are some people on my team who actually we started as friends and then they've joined the team, and we try to really make sure that there's a separation of
Yeah.
this is friend time and then this is
Yeah.
hey, you're an employee time. And then there are other people who that not friends first, and it's just we can be friendly. Well, we're not
Yeah.
friends. And that way it maintains boundaries when there are just tough conversations that emerge.
Yeah. I think that's a really good distinction. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I do think it is, especially in leadership. So let's talk about what is happening right now in the world, because I'm sensing it everywhere. I remember during COVID, it was the big word was pivot, right? We're pivoting. And then, last year, I think it was last year, not this year, in 2024 is where we're recording this. Wow, the last couple of days of the year in 2024. But I think it was in 2023, the word was leadership, right? Everybody was using the word leadership. I hadn't really heard anything this year. But moving into 2026, there's a softening that's happening in the corporate world. And I use that word because I can't find another word. I coach on sovereign leadership, right? About wielding a sword strategically, with strategy and being on the battlefield and having to do the things, but then also carrying the scepter, right? And it's not an either or, it's an and. It's always the same thing where you have got to be soft and you've got to be strong too at the same time. So I'm really feeling this moving into 2026, but that's my definition. I want to know what you're feeling. And are you feeling it in this realm that I'm talking about, or is it just something different for you?
I think that there is one of the big challenges that we have right now is just how polarized our world is and how afraid people are of having the wrong answers. And so there's just this yes or no or black or white thinking. And
Yeah.
and actually there was even going into this year, it was like blowing up DEI and like that's
Right.
wrong too. And actually I what I see is a movement towards curiosity. And
Yeah.
so that's my work. It's just like,
That's
wait
your
a
work.
minute. I think people are getting exhausted actually. I think some people are actually getting exhausted by all the fighting.
Yes, I think so
And it's
too.
just like, hey, can we just figure out a way to bridge and to connect? And we spend a lot of time at work. And so how do we have good relationships at work? And trying to find new language for that. That's what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
seeing.
and I know one of your 7 strategies is candor. We'll talk about that. I'm always saying we need to have adult conversations,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
We're acting like a bunch of kids in the office, and we need to have adult conversations that that really move the needle on the progress for the vision of the company, but also for the progress for the vision of the individuals who are there meeting their own goals as well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about curiosity for a second, since that's the name of your company.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't happen to be one of your 7 strategies, right? It's just,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's kind of interesting that you're saying that, but what do you mean by curiosity based? Because when I hear that, and as you're listening to what Dr. Julie is going to be saying here today, this is where I'm coming from, right? But you as an audience member are maybe doing something a little different. But I remember, when I was growing up as a leader, right,
Mm-hmm.
going through all those processes after 40 years, and I was growing up in my leadership roles. I thought, well, I need to be curious about people. I need to be concerned about people. But it was so fake. It was like, how was your weekend? Oh, that's nice. What'd you have for
Mm-hmm.
dinner? Oh my God, why do I have to ask these questions? So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really have curiosity. It happened to be one of my words for a year,
Mm-hmm.
right? Developing curiosity about people, not skimming the surface with relationships, but digging deeper. And so I learned how I did it. And as you're listening today to Dr. Julie, what is it for you that curiosity is? And what is your definition, obviously, Julie, in helping us understand the skimming versus I don't really care about people. Do I have to be curious? Tell us,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
take it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so Lady Jen, you mentioned 7 strategies. Actually, I think what you're referring to is my 7 forms of respect,
Of respect. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean
Yeah, no,
strategy,
no,
but
that's a
yeah,
no.
forms of
And
respect.
so
Yeah.
just to clarify there, because I'll
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that, and then I'll go back to the curiosity bit. So
Yeah.
7 forms of respect. Think of that as almost the respect version of the 5 love languages.
Oh,
So
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
the
yeah.
point there is we have different forms of respect. And Lady Jen, what are your forms of respect? These are mine. And what that assumes is we want to respect each other and we may have different ways of showing it and wanting to get it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, because you mentioned candor is one of the forms, and we can talk about that later. Um, so it's not about getting all 7. That, let's be clear. It's about figuring
Yeah.
out which are the ones you prioritize and you
Yeah.
deprioritize. Because at the heart of 7 forms of respect and at the heart of my work is how do we get curious about respect? How do we
Yeah.
get curious about one another? And so I actually think of curiosity as a practice, and it's something that we do, and sometimes we don't want to do. And Lady Jen, I so appreciated how you said, "Oh, well, uh, sometimes I don't want to. Sometimes it feels really surface level," and
I
that's
don't really
how
care what they had for dinner.
exactly, and that's really actually,
Yeah.
and that actually gets at the heart of sometimes I don't want to practice curiosity, right?
Right.
And that just because I'm hungry, I don't want to hear what you had for dinner
Right.
when all I had was cold leftovers, right? Or I don't
Right.
want to hear about your fabulous vacation when I'm homesick. And yet maybe you feel that you are pressured to do that. And so in terms of thinking of curiosity as a practice, it boils down to these 3 elements. And that is self-awareness. So that's inward curiosity.
That's EQ right there. Yeah.
There's and then there is relationship building. That's the second element, and
Mhm.
that is about not just getting curious about other people. So, Lady Jen, oh, what's tell me about your family, and I want to understand what were those childhood influences
Right.
that got
Right.
you to this
Right.
your philosophy of leadership today, and let me share with you mine. And so that's the second, that's in that relationship building. I'm not just going to ask you questions, I also
Right.
have to share myself with you,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And then you're going to react, and we're going to react to one another, and that is engagement, that is reciprocity.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
mutual curiosity. And then the
Mhm.
third element of practicing curiosity is clear communication. And so that's about listening to understand, asking questions when I don't understand, and sharing specific examples and stories from my life. So even just the fine, I'm busy. That's not very specific, right?
Right.
It's just, well,
Right.
I'm busy because I'm in the middle of a move right now and I'm
Yeah.
kind of stressed. And if you see me making faces, it's not because I don't like your idea in a
Mm.
meeting. It's because
Yeah.
I'm feeling this residual stress that I'm bringing into this meeting. And um, and so all of that is actually more powerful to recognize when we don't want to practice curiosity than just saying, be curious. And I'm curious. I'm always curious. I can tell you many examples of when I am not practicing curiosity. And there are times where I know that I should, but right now I'm just feeling my emotions. And that even requires that the first self-awareness of just
Yeah.
I'm just in a bad mood. Like,
Right,
and
right.
I
Well,
don't want to
and
think about it.
not pushing it is a good thing,
Mhm,
when you're just not in that because, I mentioned, I had curiosity as my word for the whole year because I
mhm,
was skimming the surface with everybody, asking
mhm,
the questions because someone told me to ask the questions.
mhm,
But not really caring enough, just waiting to say, oh, but let me talk to you about my product. Let me talk to
mhm,
you about my
mhm,
service, right? And
mhm,
this is years and years ago. And that's where you're talking about the active listening that is so required, in order to be curious about people. But as a podcast host, I actually am. And I may have said to you, because I tend to do this in the pre-calls, right? Don't tell me too much,
mhm, mhm,
because I am curious.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
And
mhm,
if I lose that curiosity, then the quality of our conversation here will be lost
mhm. Yeah,
because now I know.
mhm. And Lady Jen, something you said earlier was how do we have adult conversations? And I'm going to reframe that. How do we have curious conversations? Because
Yes,
sometimes children are way more curious than adults.
that's true. That's
Right.
true.
I mean,
I guess yeah, maybe we should
right.
act like
Sometimes the
kids.
children are the ones who are just, I want to understand, whereas adults are just, I want to convey my point, and I'm asking these leading
Right.
questions so that I can get my
Yeah.
agenda across, right? It's
Yeah.
more,
Maybe
how do we
maybe there's
have curious conversations?
yeah, maybe there's another way to say it. Yeah, because maybe we should act like kids and be curious, but then we
Hmm.
have to act like adults. Maybe this is the EQ piece that's,
Hmm.
so I know for me, very elevated in my career, I have a very, very high IQ. Um, but I didn't have a high EQ, and it was stopping me from going into leadership,
Hmm.
right,
Hmm.
into those leadership realms for so many years. And then I learned it all, right. I have to learn EQ, I think. But yeah, I think that's really interesting. Okay, so curiosity. So let's go back to the three steps because we kind of scooched away from it just a little bit. So what are the three steps of curiosity? Let's read
Yeah, the three elements. So
the three
there's
elements. Yeah.
self-awareness,
Yes.
relationship
Relationship.
building, and clear communication. And
Okay.
when we break it down in those three elements, it helps people understand, oh, there are different parts to it. It's not just this big be curious, right? It's
Right.
just
Yeah.
actually there are different parts. And I often like to ask people, uh, if you were to think about your coworkers, your colleagues, which elements do you think that they are lacking? And then which
Mm,
elements do you think you are lacking?
yeah.
And
Self-reflect.
and Lady Jen, I got to tell you, oftentimes I hear people say, my colleagues lack listening. And then, but then they for themselves, like, but I'm good. And
Right.
and so then
Right.
what I say is instead of going, oh, well, why is it that your colleagues lack listening and but I point out, how is it that people say that their colleagues lack it, yet so few people say that they lack it? And
Right.
that
It's
begs the question of
some
what does
point.
it mean to feel heard?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
does, and so even that's an invitation to, so instead of saying like, let's correct this, let's teach listening skills, it's actually maybe we have different ideas of what it means to feel heard. If people feel that, if they're saying that their colleagues don't have listening skills, that's also a way of saying, I don't feel heard. Then
Yeah.
why is it that you don't feel heard?
And it could be that it's instead of finger pointing, like my colleagues they don't listen. It
Hmm.
could be thumb pointing,
Hmm.
that they're not doing.
Hmm.
They need to be thumb
Hmm.
pointing, right? Come and go, I'm not listening
Hmm.
either. And so now they have lacked the respect has gone down because I didn't listen. So now they don't listen. There's so
Hmm.
many elements, there's so much depth in it. So, the people that are listening to the show, our audience are business owners, right? And you've had your business for quite a while. And, the whole purpose behind Business on the Vine is from the song, Heard It Through the Grapevine. So
Hmm.
we'd like to hear from you some of the trials and tribulations and the successes that you've had in your business, because when you're introducing something like curiosity and respect into a business, what are some pitfalls that people should be aware of as they've listened to this and go, okay, well, now I'm going to bring curiosity into my company. And you're all going to respect, we're going to have these 7 things you're going to respect, which we'll go over in a moment. But what are some of the pitfalls to introducing that? And what are some of the successful stories that you've had in your business as you've introduced it to
I
other
gotta, I gotta tell you, I've learned so much. I just finished my fifth year of business, and I've learned so much through working with my clients. And so even the idea that curiosity is a practice, that was actually something that came up um, in my first year of business, and it came from a really actually humiliating experience I had where I was presenting on my work
Yeah.
publicly and I was getting criticized. And actually, I
Wow.
talk about this in my TEDx talk as curiosity as a practice. And someone basically said, "This is a waste of my time." And
Oh,
I am just,
wow.
and this is in front of everyone. And later on, it's just like, what just happened? Because I know that person's curious. I know I'm curious. What was happening? And I realized that I had taken curiosity for granted.
That's
And
interesting.
it's just be curious, right? That's how we talk about it. Be curious. We
That's
talk
why I
about it as
said it.
it's a trait.
Yeah.
And that's when I actually started to think about it as a practice, because it was like, what was it in that moment where that person wasn't willing to learn what I was wanting to share, and why was I also having this very defensive reaction?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so
Yeah.
even from that, I mean, and this is so I'll also just say as an aside, sometimes when we are getting criticized as business owners for whatever it is, that's a learning moment. It's just,
Hmm.
and because that was an evolution for me in
Hmm.
in our whole approach. And another example is I'd often actually get criticized for hey, is the seven forms of respect, one of the biggest misconceptions about the seven forms of respect is that it's prescriptive, that it's more like seven habits of highly effective people. It's more you have to do all seven, and that it reflects a certain dominant culture. And I actually had to learn how to and I kept getting that criticism.
Hmm.
And then I actually had to learn how to frame it in a way that people could understand that two things, that that seven forms of respect does reflect this dominant culture and reflects all these other cultures. It's a both and, it's not an either or.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
the other
Yeah.
thing I would tell people is, and seven forms of respect doesn't uphold anything. It's an offer of language. And you may say, Julie, none of these seven forms resonates with me. And I'll respond by saying, so tell me what does. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Tell me what forms of respect matter to you. And so those are just two examples of kind of learning, failing in public, where
Right.
people were
Right.
challenging me publicly. And then that made me actually, I went away and I had to practice curiosity and think about it. Because it's
Right.
not like I came up with a solution or come back
Yeah. Yeah.
immediately. It was actually like, oh, I have to refine this.
I've
Hmm.
had to do that too, and I get that. I totally get that. And I imagine anybody who's listening, you're listening, you probably had to refine it because we come barrels rolling, whatever
Hmm.
this phrase is,
Hmm.
guns
Hmm.
rolling barrels, whatever they call it. We come in with the passion behind what we're doing, and we
Hmm.
expect everybody to believe it,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
right? And take it in and get it. And then we're kind of pushed back and we go, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Hmm.
Maybe there are other ways that I can explain it. But yeah,
Hmm.
I think that's a really good point is that, as you're listening here, and your gift is going to be the seven forms of respect so that people can really dig into these a little bit more. But maybe there's another word that would work for one of the words, right?
Hmm.
Use your thesaurus, right?
Hmm.
Find a synonym for it.
Hmm.
Something that say, I don't like that word, but maybe I like this word, but it still
Hmm.
applies that. But it's all about application.
Hmm.
And especially, and I'm going to ask you this question again,
Hmm.
especially as we go into 2026.
Hmm.
What are employees looking for? What are leaders looking for? What do they want moving
They
forward?
I mean, I think a lot of leaders want their employees to figure it out, right? To figure out their own
Yeah, I
answers,
don't want to
right?
have
As
to
in,
do
you know
it.
how it's just, you know how it is as the boss, just like, oh my gosh, do I have to come up with
Where's
all
my
the
magic
answers? Do you have to
wand?
come to me and tell me all your problems,
Right.
right? And you're asking me to come up with the solutions,
Yeah.
and but the thing is, then if
Hmm.
the leaders, if managers don't want that, then they also have to empower their employees, their teams to come up with answers. Because if people are coming in like, well, I don't know what to do, and then you're just, "Ah, fine, this is what you do." Well, you're actually perpetuating the problem,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And instead, it's just
Hmm.
like, well, what do you think? What do you
Right.
think we could do? Well, this
Yeah.
is this is kind of what I'm thinking, but I'm actually really open to different ideas here. And even
Hmm.
if you don't like the idea, it's like, well, let's try that, right? Because you've
Hmm.
just empowered the act of saying, turning it on the employee and saying, well, what do you think about it? How do we come up with a solution together? That's how they actually build the muscle so that they can come up with their own
Yeah.
solutions. Because you can't on one hand say like, I'm so tired of coming up with all the like having to tell everyone what to do, and
That's
then
your
you
job,
continue to
buddy.
do that. But
Yeah,
then you
that's your
continue to do
job.
that, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's very interesting because I mean, that's a basic management element,
mhm,
right? That I mean, I remember learning 30 some years ago, a basic element of, hey, is today Tuesday? Well, I don't know.
mhm.
What kind of research have you done? Who have you talked to? Right? What do you think?
Mhm,
Right?
mhm.
Those are basic elements of management that are they lost? Has that been lost? Are you finding that's lost over
I think
some period of years through entrepreneurship or what
I
is it?
think that there's a lot of perfectionism.
Mm,
I'm
mhm,
seeing a lot of perfectionism, and I'm seeing
mhm,
a lot of and perfectionism is also a, a companion to that is control,
mhm. Yeah. Oh yeah.
right?
We don't
And
know.
then like a
Let go to
companion to
grow.
that is fear of failure,
Yeah. Let go
right?
to grow.
And
Let go.
so right, and so
Mhm. Yeah.
to actually foster curiosity, there
Mhm.
has to be a letting go of control and just saying, hey, I don't know. Let's try this. I mean, there are things where it's just like, okay, this is high stakes. We're going to do it this way. And then there are other ones where it's just, this is low stakes and this is a good
Right.
place for
Right.
to encourage employees to practice and then feel empowered because
Yeah.
that will make them feel confident.
Yeah.
And then because people managers say they want that. I want employees to feel empowered and to come to with and be proactive and
But
to
they
come
don't
to
do
me with the solutions. But then
it.
they enable them.
Yeah. Do you use situational leadership? Is that because this sounds like situational leadership to me? Sit lead.
So when you mean the situational leadership, do you mean just thinking about the different situations?
Yeah, well,
Like,
it's yeah, and I mean it's what I coach on. I coach on
mhm.
situational leadership because there's the enabling stage because when someone comes on new, I mean, if you've ever been, and I know all of you, I'm going to give my age away a little bit, but I remember, every time I walked into a new office, if I changed jobs and I walked into a new office, there was a new copier and I had no clue how to use the new copier. Yeah, right? Because they're all different. Put the paper here, don't do this, you got to put in a code, don't do that code, right? So we all walk into, even though we have all these layers of expertise in our, chosen field or in what our industry is, we walk in and we don't know how things
Mhm,
go at a company, right?
mhm, mhm,
And so we walk in like that. And so in that capacity, they aren't empowered. So there is a lot of enabling. It's, hey, how do I make a copy? Or it's not even that. It's go make a copy. And they go, okay,
mhm,
I call it the puppy dog syndrome, right? Because it's like, right, I
mhm,
just go make the copy and there's no conflict, there's no back and forth. I don't know, it's just like, okay, I'll just go do. It's that honeymoon phase, but then you progress to these different phases of situational leadership where you are now changing the way that you interact with your employees because their competency and their commitment is now increasing, sometimes wavering. You got
mhm,
someone who hits that wall and it's like, I don't know, did I make the right decision? And we have to be there as leaders to help empower them to get over those humps.
mhm, mhm.
That's what I'm talking about, and I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
We can't just walk away and there's no more hey, I'm the boss
Mhm,
because
mhm,
I said so.
mhm, mhm. No,
It
and
doesn't
also there's just so many more ways of getting information too, right? It's just I don't know how to use the copier.
yes.
Well, I'm not expecting Big Boss to show me, but I can go on the internet and figure it out on YouTube, right? And if I can't, or ask my coworker, right,
Right.
another colleague, and just thinking about what are um what are the different ways I can solve this problem? And then what are the parts where it's like, okay, I've learned this much and now I'd really want
I do
to,
need help.
I do
Yeah.
need help and I want a discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's really good. It's the difference between being highly directive and highly
Mhm,
supportive as a manager and knowing when to do it. Like you said, is like,
mhm,
this is what we're going to do because I have to make this decision versus, hey, let's do a collective here. What are your thoughts? Am
mhm,
I missing something? Do I have a blind spot? That's not releasing control.
mhm, mhm.
It's
Yeah.
encouraging. that. All right, so let's move into the seven forms of respect. And so let's talk about your favorite one first. I know we can't get, but there should be a favorite for you, the one that you always defer to.
Oh yeah, I mean, so that's what we actually we describe it as what do I prioritize?
Mm-hmm.
And so what do I prioritize? I mean, so the seven forms, it's procedure, punctuality, information, candor, consideration, acknowledgement, and attention. And that so it's PPICCAA, and I like to use an acronym PICA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and so of that, I mean, my favorite is actually acknowledgement. And
Acknowledge. Mm-hmm.
acknowledgement, I getting acknowledgement, acknowledging other people through words, through actions. Another one that's really important to me is candor, and so that's
Yeah.
about those deep probing questions, the feedback. Although I got to tell you, Lady Jen, candor doesn't always feel good.
No, it
And
doesn't.
here's
It
the
doesn't.
thing. So,
Yeah.
because that favorite isn't, that's why I say prioritize, because favorite, it makes it feel like I like it, but it's just
Oh,
like, it's
I
actually
love
really,
being honest with people.
right, right.
So
And I
honest.
love getting it, right?
Oh
You
God,
know,
no.
right. But I also think
Yeah.
it's the one that I prioritize because I see the positive constructive impact of it. And also here's another thing. There's the seven forms of respect, the ones that we prioritize, say personally, and then
Mhm.
on our team, and then within the organization. And the
Mhm.
analogy I like to use is actually that of language. And so if you think about an organization and the leadership team and the CEO and the forms of respect, the top two or three forms of respect that we prioritize as an organization, that's the national language. And then you
Gotcha.
think about the different departments. There's marketing, there's finance, there's engineering.
Mhm.
They have their own leads. All their leads have personalities. And then also each function has different needs as well. And so they're going to have their own forms of respect that they prioritize. And I liken that to regional dialects.
Right.
And then there's me.
Right. Yeah.
I've got my own
My
vocabulary as
own
well,
world.
right?
Yeah.
And the people
Mhm.
who do best in an organization are those who are multilingual. I can go to engineering and I can go to finance, and I know that they are prioritizing different things. And then yet when we're at that all company-wide meeting,
We
okay, it's going to be
elevated up
this.
to the top.
Hmm.
Yeah.
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 And that's okay. So it's actually also when I was saying earlier, how do we move away from this? It's fixed. It's this or it's that. It's just, well, it depends on the context. And what's
Hmm.
really important is for us to be able to understand why, because that's oftentimes when people hear, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that, it's just, but I don't understand
Because,
why.
right. Because I
Mhm.
said so.
Mhm. Yeah, because
Right.
I said so.
Right.
And then, often, sometimes leaders there should like do what I do, not what I say. I like
Yeah.
do what I, no, do what I say, not what I do.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm looking at these seven forms of respect, and I think these are so applicable to personal relationships
Oh,
as well.
yes.
Thinking
Yes.
about, my daughter, I'm thinking
Mhm.
about a relationship with her husband. I think about the times, do I respect my husband? I just spoke in London at this thing, I call it laugh yourself to a happy marriage, with a whole bunch of
Mhm.
divorced people. It was crazy that I was in this
Mhm.
thing, but I was talking about, these needs that we have, like you're talking
Mhm.
about, maybe they need to be tall, dark, and handsome, and she has to have a beautiful body, and
Mhm.
they have to be funny, they have to be romantic, they have to be smart, whatever the thing is.
Mhm.
It's all these requirements that we have that are external,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Like I want all these things, but the question is, are you doing that? And we've already addressed this, right? We already talked about this thumb pointing, finger pointing, maybe I'm not getting that, and it just begs the question for me as I'm looking at these going, do I acknowledge my husband often enough? Do I pay attention often enough? Or is the attention that we're having, and I'm sure you've seen the Instagram video
Mhm.
where the husband and wife are texting each other sitting right next to each other,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? There's no
Mhm.
communication, right? And am I having that candor? Do I feel comfortable enough? It's not about empowerment. I just say, do I feel safe,
Mhm.
in the relationship to have candor? I
Mhm.
think all of these could be applied across all of our lives, not just in business.
I'm Lady Jen. Actually, what I'm working on right now is the research for the next version of the book, which is actually going to be respect in outside of work. So if any of your listeners want to get involved in that in the research, then please do reach out to me. We're holding focus groups and interviews because in our even in our early research for this workplace version, people were saying, I'm applying this to my home life. I'm applying this to
Right.
my kids, to my partners. And because, I mentioned earlier, I likened it to five love languages. Love and respect are different.
Yes.
Love and respect are different. And and then also in this, I actually think we talk about seven forms of respect and respect being dynamic. And it's dynamic because of three reasons. One is because of power dynamics, hierarchy.
Yes.
So in the
Or
workplace, that is very clear. In personal life, that can change over time. So there's the parent-child relationship. And then say as the parent gets older and the child and like both of them
oh,
get
it
older, maybe,
reverses.
yeah, yes, right. And
Yeah.
then and sometimes and then the second dimension is what I call give versus get. So the way we like to give respect can actually differ from the way we like to get it. And this is what can make respect contradictory. And this takes a lot of self-awareness and
Hmm.
humility to admit. Because, for example, I like getting attention. I want when someone is listening to me, I want their focused attention. And then there are sometimes I'm like, oh, I really want to check my phone. No, like I cannot, right? But like I feel that urge, but it's just, so it's not always natural for me to like, it's not like, oh, I always just, uh, I'm fighting that. So there
Well,
are
it's a
things that,
learned discipline, right?
yeah.
I mean, that's what you're saying. It's
Hmm.
seven habits, right? It's these seven habits. They
Well,
are
and then the
behavior.
third one is the third dimension is what actually matters to you. Then
Hmm.
this is the difference between what should matter versus
Hmm.
what actually matters because we've all been socialized to understand what respect should be, and it's just, but actually, does
Right.
this matter to me so much I will do it no matter what, even if it doesn't matter to the other person.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm. Okay, give me an example of that.
Mhm.
Give us an example of
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. So I hear a really easy one is punctuality. And so for me, punctuality matters to me so much that I will do it even
Yes.
with my friend. I will say I'm running 5 minutes late, even with my friends who I know are going to be way later. They're not going to even show up, right?
Right.
And so that's an example of like and it's not because I think it's a thing that we should do. It's just actually that matters to me so much. And then I also have friends who they don't they grew up in environments where it's like that doesn't matter and but
Yeah.
they feel maybe with certain depending on the power dynamic, oh, but I
I
better
probably
be
should.
I should, even though I don't care about it, but I
Hmm.
will stretch for someone else because I want to show them respect,
Right.
even
Right.
though and then there could another one like in the workplace, there are some workplaces where I hear people say, oh my gosh, we praise way too much here, everything's awesome, everything's amazing, and I feel like I have to participate in that even though I don't like it. And so
Mm.
actually, Lady Jen, I have I'm talking about respect. I have a reframe on the golden rule. So the golden rule is how a
Oh
lot
yeah, I
of
have the
people.
platinum rule. Yes, one
Well,
level
yes,
above. Yes.
yeah, no, well, and so I actually have what I call the rubber band rule.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I like
So
this.
yeah, so the golden rule is treat people the way you want to be treated. Now the
Hmm.
problem with the golden rule is what if they don't want to be treated the way you
Treated
want to be
that
treated?
way. Yes,
The platinum rule treat people the way they want to be treated. Now the problem with that, Lady Jen, is what if I don't want to treat them the way they want to be treated?
that's true. That's
Right?
true.
And so
Yes.
then I have what I call the rubber band rules. I've got a rubber band here.
Uh-huh.
And so this is, I'm going to stretch for people because I want to show respect. And I can stretch. Lady Jen, um, I know you want me to come prepared to meetings. And so I will always read the agenda, even though I'm kind of ambivalent about that, but I will stretch for you. And then
Mm.
sometimes we're in these settings where we're just, oh, everyone likes to all this praise, all this awesome, you're amazing, right? And I'm stretching and I'm stretching. And what happens over time is if we're finding ourselves stretching so much, what
That it
happens?
breaks. It breaks.
We have
There.
we snap like a rubber band.
Yeah.
And so the rubber band rule is about knowing what are my breaking points? What's
Mm-hmm.
going to make me snap? And that's different for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about self-respect. And that's going back to the first element of practicing
Mm-hmm.
curiosity. That's about inward curiosity. That's about self-awareness. And because in the work, like actually not just in the workplace, just this, sometimes we assume we have the same ideas of respect and that people are intentionally pushing us or
Yeah.
disrespecting us.
Yes. Yeah.
And when we
I
haven't
have
actually articulated our breaking points.
a snapping point. I love that analogy. And if you haven't watched that, if you're not watching and you're listening, come in and watch us. We're at what, 44 minutes in or something. Maybe 40 minutes in the actual interview. But um, Yeah, you want to watch that because it's a really good example of what we don't want as a bunch of people in our office snapping. I mean, in our personal lives, we don't want them to. A colleague of mine has a quote, and I'm paraphrasing her quote, but it's expectations without agreement causes whatever you want to put in there, anxiety, resentment, snapping, stepping away, concave. Is that a word? Concaving? Just in the bushes. I'm just sort of like caving, right? Caving, or being recluse, right? So these expectations without agreement. So we all walk around with all these expectations of what we want from everybody. And what our definition of respect is, just like what you're saying, our definition of curiosity, our definition of shoulds and needs, and should do versus have to do, all of that. And we have no communication about the agreement that we're looking for. And that's exactly what you're discussing in these seven. And I think the acknowledgement, to your point, that's your priority. The acknowledgement, I think, is where that comes in, acknowledging and having the conversation. So as we wrap up our time together, what do you want to tell those that are listening here? How do we start the conversation? How do we broach this whole conversation? Do we buy the book? Do we buy the book for the whole company? By the way, I did that once before about the no complaining rule. I bought the book and I said, here's the deal. In fact, when people came into my company, I would have a whole stack of books that I want them to read because they're our philosophy. And so I would do the no complaining rule. Like, you can't complain unless you have a solution for it. So don't come in and complain about it, right? So how do we start this as business owners to say, hey, I'm interested in this, I want to start doing it? Obviously get in touch with you, right? But what's a good way to start this? Is it a group thing? Is it self-reflection? And
I think that it does need to start with self. And so even going back to those three elements of practicing curiosity,
yes,
that self-awareness. So here's a really easy prompt that I recommend your listeners try at work. And that is, who in your life and what experiences have influenced how you think about respect?
ooh, that's good.
And that's just go around, everyone share that. And because that forces that inward curiosity, because rather than saying punctuality is important, I can tell you growing up, my mom was always late picking me up from school. That created a lot of anxiety that I carry to today. And now you understand why punctuality matters to me. And people remember stories more than they just remember these
And you
arbitrary.
mentioned this earlier. Yeah, about
Yes.
stories.
And so that is, so I think that that prompt, just doing that, brings connection. It also brings the awareness that, wow, respect is relative. And I now understand a bit more of why this matters to you. So when you tell me something, it doesn't feel like you're just giving me an order or you're making me feel like I'm not respectful. So that's something really easy. We have in the book lots of worksheets and do it yourself.
Oh, good.
We
Yeah,
also
yeah, yeah.
we have
So
a
you could
bunch
do
of
it
videos.
together.
Yeah, and so and
Yeah.
I'm a big, for those who like to read, yes, read. If you don't, there are videos. I'm all about making things accessible.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm curious about this. I'm curious about this piece. One of my core values in both my personal life and my business is integrity.
Mhm.
How do you define in your, and this is an opinion, it doesn't have to be
Mhm.
counsel, right?
Mhm.
It could just be
Mhm.
your opinion.
Mhm.
But how do you define integrity versus respect? Because I've always used the word
Mhm.
integrity. Um, Probably more than respect. I mean, I respect my elders, I respect
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
priest, right?
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
respect them. But I don't walk up to them and go, I have so much integrity for you, But it's what I hold.
Yeah, I mean, because I actually think of Lady Jen, that's such an interesting question because I actually think of integrity as something that is personal to me, and respect
Mhm.
only or respect, I should say, exists primarily in relationships. Whereas integrity is something where it first starts with me, which is, I know what I believe in, and then do my actions
Right.
reflect what I
Follow
believe in, and that could be, do I, yeah, and so that's that maintaining integrity for me. And
that.
for respect, it's how do we is um feeling seen, heard, acknowledged, appreciated. And so that's with other people, and that's also with myself too. That's where the self-respect comes in. Do I do I see myself? Do I actually appreciate who I
Mhm.
am, and do I honor who I am? So I think that there's that link for the integrity, where it's just that self-respect. You to have self-respect, there's also just even knowing it is about having integrity too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think so too. Okay, thank you for clarifying that a little bit for me. And hopefully that helped you as you're
Mhm.
listening, right? Everybody listening to this, that kind of clarified. And maybe your word isn't integrity, maybe it's something else. But um, I'm a big wordsmith. I love words. I love the definitions of them. I love, everything about words. And I'm very careful with my choice of words.
Mhm.
Um, because of that. I'm very, very careful with choice of words. And I think that's made me a great leader over the years because I didn't have those knee-jerk reactions to everything.
Mhm.
And I bet you probably think that too in business. You're an entrepreneur. Those that are listening that are entrepreneurs, is that it's not having the reaction, but the response.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that is a level of respect all by itself. It's not the
Mhm.
knee jerk reaction. It's hard to ask me a question because I always go, well, it depends. I used to have a box of
Mhm.
depends when I was teaching and training. I go,
Mhm.
what do you think the answer is? It depends,
Mhm.
right? Because I was mind mapping the answer,
Mhm.
saying, okay, I know what I want to say, but
Mhm.
should I say that?
Mhm.
And that really shows a lot of emotional intelligence. And that's what's going to be important moving forward for a lot of business owners,
Mhm.
in the coming years. Okay. Parting thoughts. Do you have a quote? Do you have a mantra? Do you have some parting thoughts? We'll have the link to your 7 forms of respect so everybody can get that. But what are some parting thoughts you'd like to leave with everyone? What's landing on your heart right now?
Well, just respect is relative, and practice curiosity. Mhm.
Love it. Love that. So you're going to have to listen to this again to make sure, because I've repeated it twice and I'm still having a problem with it with
Mhm.
curiosity. And I'm going to have to listen to it again. I know it's about relationships. That's the one in the middle, but it's
Mhm. Oh, the three
self-awareness.
elements. Yes, yes. So it's self-awareness, relationship building, clear communication. Those are the three
That's
elements
one I keep missing.
of practicing
Yeah.
curiosity.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on here today. This is sort of like having, I mean, for me, as we're recording this, is December 30th. This will be released some weeks from now. But, this is sort of like having our New Year's resolutions, right? And saying, hey, let's change us. Instead of changing all these external things, don't drink, don't sleep in anymore, visit friends more, do all these crazy things. Why don't we go internal and fix that?
Mhm.
Fix the internal first. And I think that we're going to have a fantastic year. So thank you so much, Julie, for being with us today. We greatly appreciate it. I hope that you all have enjoyed listening to this. I really want you to repeat this and take some really good notes. I got an email or instant message from someone who said that they were skiing down a ski slope listening to the podcast. And I'm going, well, that's great. But when you get down there, pull out your notebook and start taking some notes, because what you're learning in the show, every great expert that we have on, it's just making you better and better and better. And I just hope that you have the best year ever in 2026. So take some notes, take some action, and thank you for joining us today. Be sure to hop over to YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel. You'll see all 3 of my podcasts plus my TV show, Business on the Vine, as well. And we look forward to catching you next time. And again, thank you, Dr. Julie, for being with us today. Thank you for joining us on Business on the Vine. If you found value in today's conversation and would like additional support, go to supportfromjen.com. Remember, the best ideas are always discovered on the vine. So keep innovating, stay inspired, and continue to grow.